Hello everyone, today I'm taking a look at Dark Cloud. Now, I'm very excited to finally cover this because this was the thing that was touted as the Zelda killer back in the day. Yes, they literally said, Sony said, we're going to make our own Legend of Zelda and it's going to be so good it's going to blow you out of the water. And I feel like every game that starts with that arrogance or that pride of being a Zelda killer, Halo killer, whatever killer, just never really comes to fruition. And here's another example of that. Now, Dark Cloud itself isn't a terrible game. It actually is pretty fun and kind of refreshing. I think if someone were to remake or redo a version of this in the modern day in the indie scene, it would be pretty successful. Because what it is, it's a combination of two different games, really, which is a infinite RNG dungeon crawler combined with a town sim management game. And while the sim management game is very simple, I honestly found it to be my favorite part of the entire experience rather than the dungeon part, which is, we'll get into it, very, very frustrating. So, Dark Cloud, again, the whole premise of the game is that, yeah, we're going to go up against Nintendo. And the opening cutscene of this game is just, it's not CG, but it's they spent all the budget on like mocap suits and like these dancing animations that all the same characters are using. And this feels like the opening cutscene goes on for way too long about like the villain side of things, where it's like, hey, we're gonna summon this 400-year-old genie that may or may not devour and kill everyone. And just really emphasizing on the dancing. The dancing was apparently very impressive back in the day, I feel. It just felt like a lot of time was spent focusing on that. And they even mentioned it. The villains are like, yeah, it's hard to hire new dancers. Anyway, and so you have this genie that appears, and he looks kind of almost Dragon Ball Z coded. I'm not sure if this game is related to Blue Dragon or the Dragon Quest series as a whole in general, but I definitely kind of got that vibe with some of the characters, but not overall. Um, and so the genie basically is let loose, and the general uses him to destroy the village. And you're a little guy with the green cap, and your village gets destroyed. And there's almost no character development. And it's really weird. This magician shows up and he says, "Oh yeah, it looks like everyone was destroyed and killed in that cutscene, but don't worry, I actually put them inside these balls or these seeds." Which contain all the town and all the people and all the assets and village and all the buildings and everything inside of them. And so this actually becomes a main gameplay mechanic, which I honestly kind of really like, where, yes, we're going through the dungeon. And again, these dungeons are so basic. They're the same, tunnels, brown, color-coded, whatever, you know, like they're just tunnels with some wide open spaces, but they are very basic dungeon crawlers. And this game focuses a lot more on combat. So you basically have a dagger, and we'll get to that in a second. And you essentially just tap X. You just tap X repeatedly to do a combo attack and kill enemies. And they have a life bar and they die. Like, it's very, very basic, very simple combat. Speaking of Zelda, there's one enemy which is a skeleton that has a sword and shield and kind of like a ripped cloth on its bottom. It's very similar, and I thought, okay, that's fine, it looks similar, whatever. But then when you go to fight, it actually jumps backwards and then goes into an attack. And that was a little bit too far for me. So in terms of Zelda, there's also treasure chests, lots of treasure chests, but they contain a multiplicity of different items. Some of them are, food, restoration items. Some of them are upgrade items, repair items. Some of them are items you can also equip to a hotbar of 3 different special sub items that increase your speed, stamina, etc. And also you can find a dungeon map, and that shows you the entire floor. So I don't know exactly what the sales pitch for this game was. Like, oh, we need to make a game that's like Zelda but PlayStation and better. It's like, okay, we'll have better graphics and everything. But what is Zelda? Zelda, it's like I'm not really sure if it has a story, but Zelda's a game where, like, you play this guy in this green tunic and you have a village, and then you also explore dungeons. So let's just do that. Let's have the dungeon and the village literally right beside each other, And so they were just thinking very mechanically when it came to this game, which is honestly fine, I guess. But the end result is that they just think, oh, well, they just need more dungeon crawling because that's the main point of Zelda, right? It's like, not exactly. It's kind of getting there to the world. So they didn't get it at all. And so this just, it's a lot of, just dungeon crawling. And every time you enter this dungeon, it's always, the layout's always different. The enemies are more or less the same. But you're basically just going through the exact same thing for multiple floors. So when you find the dungeon map, it only shows you the map for that floor as to more or less the outlay of everything and where everything is. And instead of a compass, you have a magic crystal, which shows the location of all the items and enemies and what. So, yeah, and the gameplay is very wash and repeat. The other major, and so I forgot, yeah, we're getting to the issues in a sec, but basically the goal, okay, and this is getting to the issues, is that one of the goals of the level design is you need to kill as many enemies as possible because only one of them is holding the key that goes to the next floor. So if you're lucky and you end up killing the enemy that has, the key to the next level, and you find the next level entrance, you can just skip everything, which is kind of cool. If anything, this really reminds me a lot more of the Persona series. The way these levels are done out. And so besides the treasure chests, you also have the Altospheres, or whatever they're called. And so again, these contain all the things. So what's really nice about this game actually is that when you do die and you're wiped out, it actually just sets you back to the village with like basically no penalty, which is kind of nice. And so when you get back to the village, you can essentially, and again, they give you like escape pad, or like, why would you ever need that if the result of you dying is leaving anyway? So you return back to the town, and this is where, honestly, I had the most fun, which is like, oh, I got so-and-so's house, I got the person that goes with the house, and then if you get the person that goes with the house and you place it, you can place it basically anywhere within the grid-based village, which is just like this giant box, this giant sandbox, basically. And you talk to them, they'll tell you the certain accessories that they need to make them happy. And so you find out what those accessories are, and you find them in the dungeon, and you place them on these little sigils on the house, and then you talk to them and you complete the side quest. And it actually feels really good because you get to know the guy, you get to know a little bit about their personality, their backstory, and you get to know what they like, and you can kind of guess what they like. And then you finally are able to finish their story, and they give you a little item to help you explore the dungeon. So it has a nice synergy to it. Honestly, I really like this style of gameplay. I guess a game that does this very similarly is Cult of the Lamb. That game is fantastic in balancing the home base and going out and exploring, which feeds the home base, and exploring and improving the home base improves the items for exploring the dungeon, and they work in synchronicity. But I ended up more enjoying the village part for reasons I'm going to get into. The downsides of the dungeon. So, again, one of the good and bad things about the dungeon is water. So you of course have health, and I swear to God, and you have a thirst meter. And the thirst meter, when it runs out, you basically start taking damage for every action you take. So one of the sub items you need is water, or you also find very often in each floor of the dungeon is a pool of water. And using that pool not only regenerates your health, but also your thirst meter. So there was one time I was poisoned by a bat, and I was literally running to a pond, and I was right in front of it on 1 HP, and I died right in front of the pool. So it's kind of a fun mechanic in a way. It's a little bit frustrating. What's really frustrating, though, is the one mechanic that I don't think anyone has ever asked for or ever wanted or improved any gameplay experience, and that is durability. Yeah. They looked at Zelda and they thought, you know what's missing from The Legend of Zelda? Breaking weapons, durability. So, this is crazy. Even your starting dagger has durability. And again, because the dungeon is random, the items in it are always random. That means that, like, if you have a typical dagger, it can go through maybe 12 enemies, and there's 8 on each floor. And when the dagger breaks, you can still use it, it just does 1 damage. when it typically does 10 damage. So it's going to take you 10 times as long to defeat certain enemies, which is just very frustrating. Another thing I also didn't know is that because I was getting very frustrated with this, I wasn't finding any other weapons. Everything I was finding was either health or healing or whatever items, or items to upgrade your weapon. So the way the upgrade system works, and I just figured this out by using it, is that you have to attach talismans to your weapon, kind of like Materia and Final Fantasy, and only until you've used them enough do those attributes absorb into the weapon, and then it goes +1, +2, etc. What I didn't realize is that when that item breaks, it not only, and use the repair powder on it, yes, it'll be fully repaired, but it's going to reset to level 0. So I had a +3 dagger, and I had to do 6 talismans to get there. And because I didn't know what would happen when it breaks, it didn't stay at +3. It went all the way back to level 0. So I just wasted all that time and all that upgrade material, and I just couldn't get over that. So that just was very frustrating. And yeah, I was not finding a lot of repair powder. I was not finding a lot of extra weapons. So I was just being strapped with a level 0 dagger for quite a while until finally a treasure chest blessed me with like 3 blades in a row, and I was able to use those, but those wore out very quickly as well. So durability, like besides maybe Fallout 3 where it makes sense, there is no reason to put it in these games. It's very frustrating. And actually someone pointed out to me, it was very funny that this game is copying Zelda. It's years later that if you look at modern Zelda, they now use durability as a main thing in their Breath of the Wild games. So, Breath of the Wild, copy Dark Cloud. Yeah. Right. In Zelda, though, it makes sense because there are a plethora of weapons everywhere, and your inventory would just be flowing if they didn't break. So, in this context, it does make sense why they put it there, but for here, it does not make sense. It's very frustrating. And on top of that, so just being stuck with a level 1 weapon, constantly dying, getting booted out back to the dungeon, hoping to find something else, it's not fun. The thirst meter, again, that's just added difficulty. That's not very fun. It's just gonna make it really, really hard. I do really like the aspect of finding things in the dungeon, building your town. The RNG, though, it can just be sometimes super unforgiving, and it just, it's a lot of rinse and repeating. So it's just an infinite dungeon crawler with a bunch of very stereotypical enemies, and yeah, it's just not super fun. But when you return to the village, it is really super fun because again, you can also terraform. You're replacing, the houses and people and fulfilling their side quests. But you're also doing things like building lakes, trees, rivers, and you're doing a bunch of like Animal Crossing style stuff. And it feels a lot of fun because there's also certain buildings you build and they need certain attachments. You got to find those attachments and to make it complete. So it feels, I don't know, I really enjoyed that aspect of the game, honestly, more than the actual dungeon crawling, which is funny. But yeah, there really is no story here. There's an evil genie. There's a girl. You have to save the girl. Like it's not anything amazing or comparable to Zelda in any way, I'd say. Anyway, I think there's some more things I could talk about, certain mechanics like the minecart and other things, and other things you can build and side quests. But that's pretty much the gist of what this game is. It just makes me insane to think that they were actually trying to compete with Zelda at this time. It just doesn't really make sense to me, or yeah, it's not even close to Zelda. But it's honestly not a bad game either. It's okay, but it's not a Zelda killer. It's not an anything killer, I think, for that matter. But it's kind of something that you can pass on. But I'm glad that I played it just to be like, okay, what were they trying to do? But anyway, yeah, I think this could be a proper thing. And I think Cult of the Lamb is the best thing I can think of that really took this idea and really made it a better version of it. Yeah, so there it is. Anyway, that's pretty much Dark Cloud. Not much else to say about it. The only thing I think want to say is it is interesting how as a launch game, you had the graphical jump, and you could tell that they were very proud of certain things like the animations, the glowing lights, the water mechanics and effects. Yeah, the fact that water is the main thing that heals you, I think, is from the time where water was the main kind of uh, new technical marvel that people could do at this time. That's what a lot of games like Fantasy, Kingdom Hearts, Super Mario Sunshine, Wind Waker that just focused on water a lot, and Dark Cloud is also part of that upbringing, so to speak. But yeah, there's not much else to say about it. Very generic. Music isn't outstanding. Just presentation, art, just whatever. It's fine. And yeah, that's it. All right. See you guys.